Hi, I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Susan De Lorenzo. Susan De Lorenzo is a motivational speaker. She is an author. She is a transformational coach. She has her own podcast. She has written a book, Pulling the Gems of Adversity. She speaks primarily to women, but I know her message resonates with everyone. That we all come across things such as cancer, divorce, losing our job. And she speaks to the core of those. And what we are to do is find the gems in them. So let us listen today to Susan De Lorenzo. I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today I have the great pleasure of speaking with Susan De Lorenzo. Good evening, lady. Well, actually, it's your morning. It's my
It's
evening
my
here.
morning and your evening,
It
but
is evening here.
good everything to you.
Thank you very much. I did a brief introduction to you just prior to us speaking, but would you be able to give us a more close and personal
Sure.
introduction to yourself?
Be happy to. So yes, first starting with that name again, Susan DiLorenzo, and I'm a life coach, but I like to go back and tell everybody that it's really about being an invasive cancer survivor whose marriage ended right after treatment ended, and that it was the 1-2 punch that sent me into everything else that followed. That I really felt like there's a great saying, and do you think I can remember who it is? But it's that there's two important moments in your life: the day you were born and the day you found out why. And
Wow.
I feel like that was my wake up call, and it just shook me into a new place that I wouldn't trade for the world. I wouldn't trade that. And you hear that from a lot of people who have gone through a big adversity like that, that it just changed their life so much because they let it. They didn't, let it destroy them. They said, oh my gosh, I'm getting a do-over, which is what I thought.
So, Susan, before we get into specifically of what you're doing now, which I'd like to talk about because my mom just happened to pass away in February because of
Oh,
cancer.
I'm
But as I
sorry.
know a little bit about you and as you're speaking, uh, I'm getting that gem, right? Unfortunately for her, she didn't make it through, but there's other
Yeah, we
gems
don't
that
know.
other people can
Yeah.
glean from the adversity we go through. But when did it all start, Susan? When did
Yeah.
you get your first job and what was it you
Yeah.
were doing?
I think it was a typical American teenager who finally wanted some money in her pocket, and wanted that sense of being more adult, that having that kind of responsibility. I'd gotten my driver's license, and I got another typical American teenager job at a fast food place called Kentucky Fried Chicken.
KFC.
And oh,
Okay.
KFC.
Got to take the emphasis out. That's apparently why they changed it to KFC, but I still
Oh,
like fried
really?
chicken. Oh yeah, I had some
Oh my
tonight
gosh.
actually.
Oh, yeah. I think it's still a pretty popular item. And yeah, I remember getting all dressed up for my first big interview, and I definitely overdressed for working at interview at a fast food place.
But they saw that you
And,
were eager.
yeah, they knew I was eager, and then I traded in my awesome outfit in the interview for a red polyester pantsuit with a matching red cap.
So you got it though.
Yeah, I got it, and I loved the collaboration. I thought it was really exciting. I got to see behind the scenes
Yeah.
at KFC and thought,
The
wow,
secret recipe.
ugh, I'm not eating that.
Yeah, that usually happens.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Um,
Susan, you were mentioning just, for driver's license and getting out. Was there another motivation to get you out the door? Was someone maybe pressuring you to get out? Maybe you saw
no,
some
they
other
were
work
encouraging
ethic?
me. They
Yeah.
wanted that. My parents wanted that experience for me, and I think they were proud of me that I thought of it on my own. I wasn't, fortunately, I grew up in a home that we weren't rich, but we didn't have to worry. I'd put it
Yeah.
that way. We
Hmm.
were all set, pretty well set. We had a pretty standard middle class to okay existence like that. So yeah, my parents were pleased, and
But you still
I
had that motivation on your own.
did.
How long did you keep your KFC job?
I think it was my a summer job into the fall, and
Hmm.
um, I loved the employees. The customers, that was another thing. I'd never faced customers. I was really young. I was friendly, and some of these folks, I don't know if it's being carnivores or what, but some of them were having a really hard time. And at one point, I was in
Sticking to
tears
it.
at the front counter when somebody was yelling at me, and I said, I don't think I like this job anymore.
It can be
Yeah.
tough. It can be tough. I mean, people, as I remember growing up having KFC, it wasn't cheap, right? For myself and my family. So this was, this was a treat. So you wanted it perfect and you wanted it right away.
Yeah, and you didn't, if the lines were getting crowded, people were like, hey, I've been waiting here, so it was really sweet though, because one of the guys from, I'll never forget this, one of the guys from in back of the kitchen came up and was like, it's okay, Susan. And then one of my dad's good friends, this big Italian guy, is like, hey, leave her alone. She's doing the best she can. Look, it's crowded in here. It's so, I felt like, okay, I got my peeps. It's all
It's
right. Yeah.
you had your backup. So this is in high school, is it not? It's at
This
16,
is in high
17.
school, Brian, and the next year I had the best job ever because we all had this really beloved English teacher, great Indian guy, and he had a vegetable stand.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can't
yeah.
hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Yeah,
There we
your
go.
your audio kind of jumped, but that's
I
okay.
saw that, and I wonder if it's this mic, but I'll just be really careful not to
Yeah,
jiggle around here. I hope that's okay.
no problem.
Um,
He had a
okay.
vegetable stand, yeah.
Yes, he had a vegetable stand, and it was in front of this home for mentally retarded adults. I know you say something like challenged or whatever, but
Yeah,
it was not a term that we thought was
it was
anything awful
common
to
at the
say.
time. Yep,
Yeah, it was
yep.
common at the time. And it was a beautiful combination. I thought, and I ride my bike to the stand and I'd work at the stand. I got to read because he's an English teacher. While I'm in between, I did my job and I'm like reading Dostoevsky and selling vegetables and having these wonderful people from the home would always come
Yeah.
by to visit with me. And I thought, this is a good life. I could do this.
So in high school for these couple of years, were you starting to think of a career path? Did you have something in the back
Um,
of your mind starting to gnaw at you and say, this is where you might want to
No
go?
clue. No clue at all other than thinking about college. And I did have a dad who traveled internationally. He was an international businessman. He traveled in Latin America. We'd often have people from Latin America in our home. So I knew I wanted I was speaking foreign languages in high school.
Mm,
Um, I really loved the global village in my home. And my grandparents were immigrants from Italy. So I love, diving into different cultures. So I knew it was going to involve that, but couldn't put a finger on it until I think I looked at the idea of becoming a foreign service officer. I thought that sounded really cool.
this is in high
And
school you thought of that
I researched
prior
it,
to the,
yes. Yes, so I did pick, in college, I picked international relations
okay.
as a major, and I really loved it. I think everything but economics. I was like, ugh,
Isn't it
what's
funny
this?
though? Like my child, my daughter, as I mentioned to you, is making cookies here. Uh, I see her, especially with the podcasting, like she's loving the idea, and those little influences kind of creep up in there, not necessarily intentionally, but it's,
Right.
I mean, it's commendable for parents who are at the home and being a good influence on their kids. And we know it doesn't always happen, but just those little sort of stepping
We're
stones along the
noticing.
way, they're so beneficial for kids. And just to encourage listeners to do what you can. And I fail all the time as
Don't
a
you?
parent. Like right now, I just have my kids making cookies, my son's reading a book by himself. I could be there, but they know I was home all day with them. But
Right.
I fail in many areas, but
We
if
do
we
our
have
best.
the ability,
Yeah.
yeah, just to try our best and to be those little pebbles for them to walk along. And that's what seems to have happened with you and your father. At least he kind of set at least
I
open
loved
your
the
horizon.
experience he brought into our home.
Yeah.
And I love that he, I thought it looked so glamorous that he kept traveling 14 hours to Brazil, which probably wasn't.
No, not at all.
And what's great, Brian, when I think about it, that was a really great thing about what we notice in our parents and pull and think I would love that too is my mother was a great entertainer because of this,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
a great cook. And so that's always been a part of what I love to do also. So you're right, we pull in those things that just feel uplifting and give us a charge. And good point. Yeah, we get a lot from, we also get that, boy, I'm not going to do that. That looks boring.
Yes, and I probably encourage them. You don't want to do this part of the job that I'm doing. So into college, were you starting to define exactly what you wanted to do? So you were already on a path.
I love the curriculum. And I loved my teachers. I really had a lot of great professors. And I did have a great internship at the U.S. Information Agency in Washington, D.C. I was lucky my grandparents lived there. So when I got the internship, I could just live with my grandparents and go in and work down the street from the White House. So that was really cool. And I felt like a fish out of water, though, because I was the only one.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest,
Hmm.
and I noticed that everybody else was from these Eastern Ivy League colleges in the United States. And I'm like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh boy, because it's a culture I found, and I did later live in Washington D.C. after I graduated from college. That is very much about where did you go to school,
Yeah.
and where do you work now? And I was, and my job out of college was not, I was taking the Foreign Service exam. I kept missing it by 1 point, Brian. I was just crushed. And then at the third time, I missed it by 2 points, and I said, "Okay, I'm just, oh God." So I ended up at a market research firm with these really bright young people. The owner of the firm was only 30 at the time, and he had all of these out of college new grads doing all this market research in the banking industry. And I loved the people. The work was kind of tough
Hmm.
because he put us on the phone to market to marketing managers of banks. And again, I'm
That'd
like,
be a tough
"Hi,
gig.
yeah, do you want to talk to me about joining us?" And no, no, no. And it was almost like being back at the counter of the KFC.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah, but I had great people there and a great experience living there. I lived right on Capitol Hill.
For that experience, Susan, jumping ahead now, do you think, but you kind of mentioned it, that in Washington there, and there's other pockets where people perceive you in a grander light, depending on where you went to school, your socioeconomic status. Coming here to your life now, was your perception correct? Or were you able to strive anyway if you wanted to? Or is it, you're in this town, the only way you're able to succeed is if you go to these Ivy League schools? Or can you, maybe it's a comfort, a self-confidence thing, that if you just do your work well, you will be able to succeed as well as them?
Ultimately, that last part is true. That's true for anything, no matter what you do, because there's this drive in us, there's this connection we can have to know it's our thing to do. But I do want to say, looking back, I think that was a leg up. There was
Mm-hmm.
less questioning about what you were going to do because you were trained at this place
Mm-hmm.
and came from this echelon, I'll say. So it's a yes and no. There's that leg up, but then it's still up to us to, de- to deliver, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after your experience on Capitol Hill, where did you venture off to?
Germany.
Okay. I was
I,
thinking
you know,
maybe
I,
California or something, but
that
Germany.
came next, Brian. So,
Okay.
yeah, I got an internship in Germany. And I'd been in DC for a few years. And the wild thing, and the young people at the time in DC often are these limited positions with a congressman, with the courts, getting their experience before they
Hmm.
go on to grad school. So I was constantly having to make new friends because my old friends, or fairly new friends actually, were
Hmm.
leaving to do the next part of their journey. And so I thought, I'm tired of trying to meet new people all the time. I'm going to go somewhere. And so I had this opportunity because I spoke German, and I still badly speak German, to go to Germany. And I started to get my German brushed up. I worked at my dad's friend's cousin's shoe store in
Hmm.
Coburg, Germany. And my vocabulary was centered around shoelace and heel and a vacuum cleaner. So I just got, and they had a little dog, a little dachshund. My name's Susan, the dog's name was Susie, so they'd start accidentally calling me by the
The
dog's name.
dog.
It's pretty funny. um, Great experience, loved those folks. And then
Wow.
I went up to Dusseldorf, and I did work at a consulting firm where I basically was a glorified copy maker. I
But you
didn't.
were in Germany.
I got delivered, and it was a great place. Again, everywhere I've gone, I've just been able to reap the heartfelt gratitude of a great relationship. Always meeting the next person on your journey that's actually building you and me.
Mhm.
That the people we meet along the way, that we can take things from, just like with our parents.
Mm.
So that was great. And I lived in this little um, Catholic rooming house in the old city of Dusseldorf with people from Poland, from France, from Finland, and we all had to speak German to communicate. Some knew some English,
Mhm.
but we all kind of, if a German were listening to us, it probably sounded like a room full of toddlers talking to each other. So
Well,
again,
I'm in
great stuff.
Korea, so I understand that completely. That's the
Yeah.
extent of my Korean ability.
Oh, really?
Very much so.
Oh, how long have you been there, Brian? May I ask?
This is my, I'm over 10 years now.
Oh, very good.
So, but that's not a good excuse for my ability.
Well, there's always time, but you probably have enough to get by, right?
Well, I have my dear wife who's Korean, so she could help me the whole way through.
You have your ambassador.
That's
Yeah.
that's it. I just lean on her. She is my crutch.
Oh, wonderful.
So as you went from Germany, you obviously went to California. What was the transition there?
Well, I had a little bit. Oh, I tell everyone that I came back from Europe because I traveled through Europe. I took all the money I made in Germany, and I wound my way through Europe, through Austria, Italy, France, England, and Scotland. And then I said I came home uh, broke,
Bro.
fat, and needed a job. So I stopped at
Well,
my
you were
parents'
hungry
for a
though.
bit.
You were hungry for a job.
Yes, hungry for a job. And so yes, I have family out in California. That's always a great anchor, I think, because you just having a friend or a family member makes it easier, I think,
Yeah,
to hop over to something else, so you have a
yeah.
little bit of a grounding or
Comfort.
a landing pad. So yeah, I had my aunt there, and my grandmother was now up there, and I looked for work,
Not
and I
knowing
thought,
what you were going to do, just you had a
not
family member
knowing,
there.
just like, here I am. And I probably took some temp jobs when I first got there.
Yeah.
They're great to get you going when you first land somewhere, I think, getting a temp job. Yeah. S- So you're not going to believe this next job I had, because I was really having trouble, and I was heartbroken over this one job I really wanted, and I
Was there
didn't
at
get
this
it.
point of all this experience though any inclination as to what
I
you were
was
not
just flying by the seat of my pants, Brian.
just spinning the
I
wheels?
really didn't want to work for a living, frankly. I was like, what? I felt like I was all along, even through school and the work life. As much as I agreed we had to do this, it was like I was some alien who came to this planet and was like, what? We got to work and pay bills, and we have taxes. I mean, can't we
Okay.
just do stuff that we want to do? And
But
so,
it's good you mentioned this though, because
yeah,
there's a lot. I did that too, almost up until I was 28 when I first came to Korea. I started taking things a lot more seriously, and there's lots of people who do it. And some
yeah,
people are doing it, maybe a more risky way of doing it, but you didn't do it that way. You were going to a place where there's a
no,
place for employment, and even though you weren't sure of what you were doing, you were still making ends meet, and you were getting some very valuable experience that you can come back
Very
to.
valuable experience. That's true. But I was following the only model that was modeled to me in my family and around me. That the structures I went through this was like, you go to school, you go to college, you get a job, and it was actually probably at that point where you think, okay, now it's time to this is my model, get
Mhm.
married, have children,
Yeah.
for maybe even buy the house before you have the child, and it was like this feeling like I was flowing through this model, but not wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
Just like I didn't know what else the model would look like. Now I do. There's lots of models, but this was my model. And I ended up getting a job through a friend, through a big corporation, but in their collections department. Can you imagine? I mean, here I am. I'm still as kind and, whatever.
I
And I'm
need your
like,
money.
hi,
You owe me
your
money.
card payment's 3 months overdue. Can you send that to us? No, I don't stop calling me. And so, and actually some people appreciated the kindness.
Yeah,
Some
because they don't
people,
receive it too
they
often.
don't normally get it, and I'd actually get money that way.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't my favorite job, but I really learned some skills in that job. And it was the job that um, actually got me over to the East Coast. I got transferred over to Massachusetts. And I wanted to move by that point anyway. And it was like the universe said, great, we're going to put you on a plane. Your car's going to be driven out there, and you're going to land right in Boston.
From one coast to the next.
Yeah. And at this point, I'm in my late 20s, and I'm wondering, am I ever going to settle down? Am I just going to
Hmm.
keep moving? So that was good. When I landed in Massachusetts, I felt home. I felt
Yeah.
like New England. Yeah, this was a place I'd been to once before
Hmm.
and had some sense of, but the access that we have in New England to the ocean, to the mountains, to the forests, to going to a city like New York or
Hmm.
anywhere, it's a great launch pad to so many places.
I'm from Nova Scotia, so that there's a lot of comparison between Maine and Nova Scotia and that New
Yes,
England area
beautiful. I would
very much
love
so.
to go. That's on my bucket list, Brian.
It's a
Yeah,
very beautiful place.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
It's funny though how you can go to a place and you feel like home even though it wasn't your home
I think
previously.
that's your soul saying, "This is our place. This is where, at least for now,
Yeah.
you landed right, and you don't feel like a nomad anymore." I didn't. I shall put it in my terms. I felt like, that almost that same feeling if you've bought a house and you walk into the home and you know it's your home, that's the
Hmm.
one you're going to buy. That's kind of how I felt when I landed here in Massachusetts. And now I'm in Rhode Island, which I feel I
Hmm.
love just as much. Yeah.
It's funny, just about 2 months ago, we bought our first apartment, home, but
Oh,
a house
yeah, it's a
apartment.
home. Yeah.
And my dear wife was wanting that to fulfill her idea of life for 14 years now, and finally
Oh,
to
yeah. Good.
provide that.
Congratulations.
But
Great.
thank you. When we walked in, she was like, "This is home. Like
Yes,
this
that's
is
the
the home."
feeling.
And
You
she was
just know you've
thrilled.
arrived
I was
home.
like,
There's
"Are you
something in
happy?"
that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yes. Score. Yeah, that's
So
wonderful.
what was the new job that you were doing on the East Coast?
Same job. I got transferred,
It was just
and
transfer over.
yeah, and I ended up meeting my first husband there, my husband, and that was really the road down to um, that job ended. I'm thinking now, that job ended, and I took a temp job at a financial place, and I was always in kind of on the perimeters of the financial
Hmm.
industry.
Yeah.
And this one put me right in it in institutional marketing for a big organization. And again, the people were so smart, so interesting. That kept me going. I never, in all of these jobs, felt like I'd found me in them.
Hmm.
I just felt like I found something I could do, get paid for, and enjoy on very general terms, but not like that soul fulfilling, I'm in my place kind of feeling.
And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't find that.
A lot of people don't because they think, and this is me, oh well, I did the best I could. I'm just gonna keep doing the best I can and making
Hmm.
the most. Yes,
Hmm.
definitely keep making the most of whatever you're
Situation.
doing
Yeah.
and draw the gold from it for sure. But as we keep going, I'll tell you that it's absolutely possible to do what you love. And it does take a journey or a kick in the pants, which is that's the way I got there.
So I
Yeah.
think this is how you're getting into you're in your finance at this point. You're
Yes.
married, and then everything is all pretty in a bow.
Yes, yes, it's the checklist I was telling you about earlier. You know, I just finally checked off the marriage, the house, and not right away. We were in an apartment for a while and
Hmm.
did not have a child right away. And then yes, that was that great feeling of walking into this house, which I now call this old house because it needed so much work, but it was our house. And then having this baby. I was pregnant when the house was bought, and so yeah, I checked everything off the list. But I also, when in doing so, I settled for a relationship that I already knew was going to be very difficult. But I married what I knew because I had a parent with depression. So I was like, "Oh, I know how to do this." It's not conscious that I said that. It's like you fit your little peg into that round hole that you are.
Hmm.
You know, that just bam, there you are.
I can handle
And
this person with their luggage because I've seen it before.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I walked on the same kind of eggshells in a different way to make myself feel safe and not um, get any of the what Anne Sheffield calls depression fallout. You know, we are trying to, and it's a codependent coping method. I mean, I
Hmm.
didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
It was all unconscious. So I set myself up for um, really a lot of challenge and unhappiness. It wasn't every day like that, but it was an overall pallor, I'd say, over my life.
Hmm.
Yeah. And my big wake up call, and I want to back up and say my mother had breast cancer. And she got it when she was 38 years old. She had a mastectomy of her right breast. And little did I know that that would be my foreshadowing, that at 38 years old, I had an 18-month-old son, and I'm in this marriage, I'm in the house, I'm working full time, I'm taking a train into Boston 40 minutes away. I really didn't feel like there was enough of me to go around. I was just flat out exhausted and very disappointed. I felt like a failure. Like, you know, you see it, I was brought up in this model of you can have it all, woman. You know, you can have this great career, a baby, you can have a fabulous home, and you're traveling, and it isn't this glamorous. You know, you wear this shade of lipstick to work and these awesome clothes, and you put on the face and you go in, and it was all falling apart for me. So
The
I
bad
would have,
marriage wasn't, that must have been in the fine print, or the cancer must have been, you didn't see that
yeah,
initially
I
going out.
didn't see it because I was pushing down all these feelings to be already a survivor, a different kind of survivor. And because of my family history, I had to start getting mammograms at age 35. And I'd had a few, and I thought, wow, I don't look like my mom. I'm not anything like my mom. I'm not going to get cancer. Oh, well, I'll just keep going for these mammograms. And sure enough, at age 38, they kept calling me back into the room to do more films. And I'm at frantic because I have to get back to,
I
I'm
have
more
that life
about,
to
hey,
live.
we got things, I got to pick up my kid at daycare. Can we hurry this up? And finally they're calling me and I can barely hear because the train is leaving in like 15 minutes. I've got to run like half a mile down the street to catch the train. You know, I could have thought of something else to do, but I'm just on this schedule. And they're telling me, no, we see something and you've got to schedule a lumpectomy. And I'm falling apart because my mother lost her mother when she was 18 months old. And here I have an 18-month-old son, and I'm already thinking I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
like in this
You're trying to
pattern right
connect
now.
all these, yes.
And I'm just bawling. I made the train. I'm bawling all the way home. called my mate, and I couldn't find my keys to the car, and he had to come and get me at the train station. It was um, really, and the wild thing, Brian, is that was just a little cancer. That ended up just being um, what they call stage 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this lumpectomy, and I was like, whoa, what was that all about? Oh, that was scary. But I had to have a follow-up appointment with a radiation oncologist. And I'm already thinking, hey, it was 0 stage, clean margins, which means they got it all. And
You might be a little boastful, like, see, I beat
yeah,
that.
what was that all about? Sheesh.
I can do
Wow.
this.
And then this radiation oncologist has a medical student with her. Do you mind if we just do a medical exam, a breast exam for this student? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
sure, no problem, doc. And she's palpating the left breast. It's great. She gets over to the right breast and stops and looks at me and says, has anybody talked to you about the lump in your right breast? What? And she brings my hand to it. She brings the medical student's hand to it. Look. And boy, again, I'm like, I don't have time for this. There was actually a book out at the time called Breast Cancer. Let me check my schedule. And
Ah,
that was I was like, wow, that's it.
right on
And
point. Yeah.
I had plans, damn it. I was going to my, high school reunion. I was going on vacation. I don't have time to schedule another lumpectomy. And yeah, I had to do it. I still did those other things, and I fit it into my schedule. But I had the same surgeon who did the other one. I'm like, hi, doc, I'm back. And he, did the surgery and then came out and said it looked worrisome. And in my mind, I couldn't conceive what worrisome meant. I thought in my mind that meant, oh, it's definitely like the last one. I wasn't going to go any
Any
higher than
further
that.
than that, yeah.
Yeah, I could make a deal with God that, okay, it's probably just like that one, and no big deal. But no, it was invasive. They had to do a lumpectomy. They didn't get it all. It was in my lymph nodes. And because they didn't get it all, I had to have a mastectomy. And that was the real journey of
Mm-hmm.
life kicking my butt and telling me, nope, you don't have a schedule anymore. You got to lie down. You got to do this whole year of treatment and just being really with yourself. Yes, you'll have support. There's this support around me, but it's a journey we can only take alone and with our spirit.
Yeah.
And that was the greatest journey of my life. The rest that came to be was that my marriage ended after this. But this was the molding journey that prepared me to hear that my mate didn't want to be married anymore, because I knew I had just come through cancer. It wasn't that I loved hearing that. I barely had any hair on my head. It was like, I'd say over a year since the whole thing had started, and maybe 4 or 5 months since I got the cancer-free diagnosis. And I knew my marriage was in trouble. We had gone to a couples dealing with cancer workshop at this hospital. And he said some things that were really alarming about our relationship, but I didn't deal with it then because I had to focus on getting better. I knew that I was getting near the finish line of being done with cancer treatment, and I had to shelve it. I couldn't, I consolidated that. I compartmentalized that for another time. And this was the time I brought it back out. And I said, we got to work on this. We got to get back to where we were. And he's nodding his head. And he says, actually, I think I need to live alone. And I was like, are you
This is
kidding me?
this is with you, as you said, with barely any hair.
Oh, yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I can never put myself in your shoes, but the only word that I'm thinking is I hope it doesn't seem crass or anything,
No.
but feeling naked, like
Yes. Oh,
totally,
so
totally
vulnerable.
vulnerable, I guess is a
Yes.
better word.
Yes. That's no,
Totally
same
bare,
thing.
and just you're leaving me like this now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was hard, looking back, that imagine I can now do this, being in his shoes, knowing how unhappy you are. he hung in there for the whole treatment, really was a champion, and now is like, okay, we're getting to this part where I've got to be honest. And it was devastating. I went up to the bathroom and yelled to God, do you think I could just have a year off? Because I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, what about that baby, you know, sleeping up in that room right now? What
Mhm.
about him? And, he was like, please don't make me feel any more guilty than I do. And I was really sarcastic at this point. I'm like, yeah, sorry. Gosh, sorry
Sorry,
about that.
I don't hurt your
Um,
feelings.
yeah, geez. But yeah, that is the truth, that it was a heart-wrenching decision. But on my end, it was like, you got to be kidding me.
No, he
And
was
and
wrenching
that's
you.
yeah, everything's getting wrenched. Yeah, everything's getting wrenched. And I it took me a while to get my brain around that. It really did. I use this phrase, Brian, when I speak in public, that I thought the universe was kicking my butt. And over time, I came to learn it was actually cleaning my house. It was clearing this new platform. And here we are talking about work. It led to the work I'm doing now. It didn't happen right away. I did end up being separated. I did go back to my job where I'm working in the corporate world on taking the train in every day. Um, I work with great people. I love the collaboration. The work itself was dull to me. It was same stuff, different day kind of work.
Mhm.
And I felt even more obligated to that work, though, that idea of having benefits and being in a position where I could care for my child if anything went wrong.
Did you also feel you had less places to turn? So you couldn't turn to your husband because he wasn't there, and a lack
Oh,
of seeming options as well.
he was a very good co-parent.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
really was good about helping picking him up from daycare
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to be in his life. So thank God for that. That was, not everybody has that part of the story, but I did feel that his care was largely on my shoulder. And so was the care of this house. I mean, looking back, I probably would have moved into a condominium, but I thought of the idea of having this backyard for my child and holding it all together. I still was in that mentality of holding it all together. Um, and isn't that interesting? Because a year later, a tree fell on my house and I got pneumonia. I'm like, oh man, I was mad. I was like, I'm like, I already gave at the office. I don't need this.
You got your
Oh,
1 year off.
I got my 1 year off, and
Yeah.
wow, that was wild, really wild. Um, it was a wild journey, and it was still showing me, I was happy to be alive. I started dating somebody, a wonderful guy from France that I'd met at my friend's wedding. So we had a long distance relationship, which was perfect as a single parent. I wasn't dating somebody in my town all the time. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
nice, wonderful thing. And we were on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I was feeling such appreciation for myself in this because it was somebody who really adored me. And I started to see myself through his eyes and appreciate myself, even though at this point I had recently had reconstructive surgery. I always kidded that my torso looked like a roadmap for all the surgery I'd had on it. So it took a lot of trust to reveal it to
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
And it was just a wonderful way of, through his eyes, accepting my own body and my own gifts as a woman and as a person, that led me to search for even more. And it was really at the point where a few years into this, I got laid off. I got laid off from my job, and I saw it again because of cancer and divorce. I thought, another deck has been cleared for me. I wasn't doing it on my own. And we hear what my mentor Mary Morrissey loves to call the signals that we all have of longing and discontent.
Mm-hmm.
We may be able to push down the longing and make excuses for what else it is we may want to do, but discontent keeps punching away at you. I don't like this. This isn't me. How much longer do we have to do this? In this wee moment of being with our spirit. And so this clearing of the deck through the job, I thought, okay, and I'm still trying to do it the logical way, which
Mhm.
is, okay, what's out there that I would love more than this? And I was into holistic health very much after my breast cancer. So I was looking for, and I'm in marketing. So I thought I could market for holistic health organizations, whether there's an industry format that I could, what do they call that? A a group that forms a group of holistic companies that is a representative that I could help market and promote holistic health to other
Mhm.
people. It wasn't happening, although I found in the searching this wonderful organization in California called the American Holistic Health Association. I reached out to them to say, hey, anybody out here on the East Coast I could contact? And they said, no, but we'd love it if you would write about your health journey. We have people sharing that. And they ended up publishing my work. They ended up publishing something I'd written, and I didn't even, I just was starting to see myself as a
You're
writer because
starting to write, yes.
yeah, I was starting to write. I'd written a book that I wanted to call I Can't Believe This All Just Happened to Me, because I just did a big download, a big dump of whatever just happened to me between cancer and divorce and this French guy. It was just like, wow. Um, and so that was my idea of, well, I'm I'm a writer. And in the meantime, Facebook was a big thing then,
Mhm.
and I had barely gotten onto it. And that's where I started learning about life coaching. Something popped up, and it was Mary Morrissey and her Life Mastery Institute that began with the sentence, would you like to be a speaker, a teacher, a coach? I'm like, click. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes, yes, yes. Sure.
And so from there, I did the training. It was online training. And then we go out to where they are in California, and we do a certification program. And you're meeting other coaches. You're really getting a great sense of what this program can do. You get it while you're in the training. And the thing I would say to anybody else who wants to be a life coach is that you want to align with not only the training that's involved in it, you want to align with the messaging that you believe everything that your founder believes, or the
Mhm.
person of the organization believes. And for me, it was living a spirit driven life, listening to longing and discontent, knowing what those signals are, and then being given a way that's codified. I already believed everything this person was saying, but to have it packaged up in a program instead of just spewing random things I learned through cancer and divorce, putting it in a package of transformation for other people. And I chose my clients. You know that phrase, Brian, your mess is your message?
Mhm.
So I knew that my clients were going to be women coming out of life altering uh, adversity.
Setbacks, yeah.
Yeah, that's when I felt like my work life started coming alive. And did it happen right away? No, I didn't go out there and become $1 million coach right after I started. Is it possible? I bet it is. Not in my experience. I didn't do it that way because
Mhm.
everybody has certain paradigms about what it's supposed to be like. And if I didn't work hard enough, it wasn't going to happen that way. But what I could do is find another job, knowing what I know, and it was in the financial industry, and start working in the background, getting
Yeah.
clients, public speaking, getting a website, creating a blog, um, getting into radio ultimately. And instead of walking in as a corporate cubicle worker hoping to be a coach one day, I flipped it, and it's the very training I do with my clients. I started walking into the office as the coach
Mm.
who's working in the corporate world. And people started to see me differently. And my colleagues would start coming to me with coaching questions, which I loved. And I would keep working on my business while doing this. So I called it my bridge job. And I held on to my bridge job, though. I held on to it thinking I had to be at this perfect place to lose it. And once again, the universe, was like, oh, we're laying you off. I'm like, okay. And I called that moment, instead of anguish ridden, it was more like what I call scary happy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're cutting me loose, here I
But what's
go.
next?
And before I left the door, I had a new client and a speaking engagement. And I thought that was a sign from the universe, like, okay, you got this, you got this. And it doesn't mean everything's been perfect, but opportunities have always kept presenting themselves to me. And I've always listened to what's the next step? What's the next step? Because that's all we have. Nobody has that whole, well, unless you have such a planned career, I'll say that could happen in the corporate world to have a planned
Mm-hmm.
career. But in this kind of entrepreneurship, I'll say, it's really that what's my next step? What's my next step? What's inspiring me? What's that guy doing? Oh, I'd love to do that. I don't follow a rule book, but I follow my internal zinger, that part that goes, yeah, you should do that. And there's always a little bit of fear around that. There's a little bit, I always know when I feel a little bit of nausea and I want to faint, I'm supposed to do that. And that was true with getting into radio. It's not, I had it in mind that I wanted to be on a radio program. Actually wrote it, I'm in writing in a journal. I said, this year, what do I want to do? I want to be on a radio program. Within 2 weeks, somebody was marketing to me to be on their radio station, Transformation Talk Radio. And I thought, whoa. And it scared me at first. I'm like, oh, I said I wanted that, but oh my God. you know? And so I said yes, but it was like through this woozy feeling. And I always know afterwards, just like the life coach moment where I invested to be a life coach with no job and a single parent, was this calm that came over me after feeling all the anxiety. Was I did the right thing. I did it. And it's my next step. It's my next step.
Susan, can you speak? Because when I started reading about you, I thought it's great. I mean, I think your clientele are mainly women, but even just listening to you, I know your message is not solely for
It's
women.
universal.
It's
Yeah, sure.
universal.
Yes.
Is when you mentioned how you're looking at people in their setbacks and bringing out the gems in them, do you have some examples? I mean, whether it's divorce or cancer or job loss,
Yes.
as you and I
Bankruptcy.
were
There's so many brands or flavors, aren't there? Yeah.
you and I were
Um,
speaking about this a moment ago before we started. It's just so many people go through adversity, and
yes.
it would be so beautiful to hear everyone's story because everyone
Yes.
does have a story.
Everybody has, and it's there to awaken us. It's never meant to smash us. And I love that you use the word gems, Brian, because that's the name of a book that I'm just finishing the manuscript on, called "Pulling the Gems from Adversity," and that's the invitation.
Well, to be
That
honest, I looked it up and I found it, so it's not like I guessed. I I
well,
I
it's a
read
great
it.
segue.
Oh, it was good. Yeah,
It's a great
and I
segue.
mentioned it before, so yeah. But it's a great title of a book, and it's just so wonderful because there's so many people who go through the things that they go through, and they use them, and they're horrible things. And
They
many
are,
people,
yeah.
there's enough
We won't argue with
excuse.
that.
There's
Yeah,
enough excuse to say that I would understand if you wanted to give up because that is horrible. But even in the tragedies that people go through, there is so many wonderful gems that can be taken from them.
that's right. That's right. And that's the invitation. We don't have to take the invitation. We can let that defeat us. What I find happens when we let these things defeat us is life keeps trying to wake us up with something else. We get into a pattern until the pattern doesn't serve us anymore. So it's almost like graduating when we take the invitation. And for me, what were my gems? Learning that I played small, that I didn't think it was possible for happiness in my life, that I had such low self esteem and low expectations. And that was the do over for me, is to put myself in a place of reverence for my life and for what I can bring to the life, and that there are no mistakes. We're all here for a purpose. And when we're facing, especially our mortality, because let's face it, we all have a beginning date and an end date.
10 out of
Nobody
10.
gets out of here alive. So that is my invitation to your listeners, Brian, is that to consider, and in the book, I put in the 5 stages. And the first one is called holding firm in a storm. What are the
Mm.
mindsets? What can we do for ourselves while we're in it? So many of us try to resist, hide, and there's things we can do to give ourselves some peace and allow some help to come in. And then going through past that, you're coming out of the adversity. There's the invitation to start considering, pull out a pen, really reflect. What is different about me now? What is coming to me now? What would I love my life to look like now? What are the new possibilities that I never gave myself permission to consider before? What are my longings and discontent? And not everything can come with you. You
Mm.
can't hold on to resentment. That's another section in my book. Not everything can come with you. Resentment, poor self esteem. There are some things that have been hidden in our closet for so long, these paradigms, these negative beliefs and habits we've had. We got to clean out the closet. It's just like going through your closet and saying, you know what, this doesn't fit me anymore. I'm going to wear this now. I've got to go shopping for for what I
Mhm.
know is in here. And then finally, advancing boldly. So you've gotten to the point where you're discovering new possibilities, you're cleaning out your closet. Now let's go for it. Let's go for your dream. Don't have to go back. Some people try to cobble back their old life again. Now, where was I? And they even insert, like, I could have inserted the same kind of mate again if I hadn't learned that message.
Right.
We have to see what part did I play in my drama, right? That all the world's a stage and we're merely players, as Shakespeare says. Here we are on this life stage. We have this avatar. Mine is called Susan DiLorenzo, and I'm playing a part. Well, what if I want a new role, right? The avatar doesn't necessarily change, but the role changes because I've given myself a new stage to be on. And it's a higher stage of awareness. That's what I want for everyone is just to keep checking in and getting the awareness on what is my part in my adversity story so I can put that behind me, take the gems and build with these gems of awareness on this new platform that's really going to set my soul on fire.
As you say that, I'm thinking of someone holding a tree and a storm going by and the storm being gone, and they're realizing they're unscathed and raising their hand in joy and jumping along happily and joyfully, knowing that they made it through. And in doing
Right.
so, as you said, you can't bring your old ways with you, your old clothes, your attitudes and unforgiveness and a newfound gratitude in your purpose given life. And I think that's one thing that's
Well said.
stripped away from people nowadays is we're just random things with no purpose. No, you
Yeah.
certainly have a purpose. I don't know your purpose or any other person's purpose, but I surely know you have one.
Oh yeah. If
And
you're
that is the
here, there's a
journey.
reason. Yeah. It's not random. And I love to come from, I'll say, the knowledge that we chose to be here, that it wasn't just like, oh, somebody just threw me on the earth and now what? There's that checking in, connecting moment of the divine in us that I love. And you said something beautiful about the tree, which I wanted to go back to, which is, yes, we've been shaken like this tree in a storm. We may have lost some leaves, but we're still here. And that feeling of resilience and power from being the tree in the storm is something you don't want to list. That is one of those gems that you want to say, good for me.
We
Good
had a
for me. I'm standing.
we had a typhoon here 2 days ago, and I
Oh
stayed in
my
my apartment,
goodness.
and I videotaped the typhoon going through our apartment area, and the trees were literally bent right over. And I sent it to my
Oh,
dear wife because she was at her mom's, and I was supposed to go pick her up. She says, "Is it time to pick us up yet?" I took a video and sent the video. I said, "I don't think so, but those trees are perfectly upright now, right?
oh,
And they're
yes,
probably stronger for it. Some,
yes.
agricultural way of some sort."
Yes, and there's so many examples in nature of great ways of being, right? being the peace, the eye of the storm, right? The center of the storm. And I love the word circumstance. Circumstance is this, right? The circle,
Mm-hmm.
circum, and then stance. We aren't what's happening to us. We're standing in the center, observing it. It is our feedback of all our thoughts, all our paradigms, all our ways of believing are coming back and saying, this is what you have created for yourself. And until we own that, guess what keeps happening? Here you are. Here are your thoughts. Here are your beliefs. You don't think life is very good. You don't think you're good enough. You're going to get all the feedback that keeps proving to you that you're right. Whatever you believe, you're right, right? What is that Henry Ford phrase? Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
so many people that are self-defeatists. They, I mean, they're almost looking for a reason to
It's
to
often
blame.
modeled for us.
It's
I think,
unfortunate.
yeah, I think we can see that in our own families sometimes, or in the groups we fall into. You know, that phrase, misery loves company also. You know, we can all agree that, excuse the language, life sucks, you know,
Mm.
and you can be in the club that says, see, there's another, look at that. There you go again.
Pull
Just
up a
like I
chair.
said,
Let's talk about it.
right? And yet the people that are building their lives are going to, there's not that you don't acknowledge the facts that something unfortunate
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
happening, but you're looking for the gold. You're saying, wow, look, it's like that Mr. Rogers, we have Mr. Rogers, and he always talks about, in a crisis, look for the helpers.
Mm.
Because what does that happen when you see somebody, you know, rescuing the animals during Hurricane Katrina, uh, building, you know, bringing people into their homes whose homes were lost in a tornado? What does that do to our spirit? It uplifts us.
Look for
So
the helpers.
look for the helpers, yeah, and we can do that in our lives with whatever good there is in our lives. We want to focus on that and then create more.
I think COVID is is showing some of those types of people who have the same perspective as you as well, that are
Very
still
much.
working, still striving, still going after their goals, their dreams, and their passions, while the other people are saying, "Oh, it's over. You know, look,
Oh yeah.
this it's never going to end. We're all going to die."
Yeah, there is an end date. I know I felt that way with cancer. Like, wow, when's my end date on that one? Because that was a long year. But some people have it even longer. Some chronic illnesses and other
Hmm.
diseases go through years of treatment. And I think that the thing we have to hold on to is there is an end date. Or I love this phrase, Brian. This is what it looks like while everything's coming together. That
Hmm.
I really believe in this, just like in my own life, there's a shakeup going on to create something even more beautiful for our world. And this is what it looks like. What if this is what it looks like? And instead of that wonderful old REM song, it's the end of, no, actually, that's a great song to use. It's the end of the world as we know
As
it.
we
And
know it,
I
yeah.
feel fine. And
Hmm.
I feel fine. Because it's like that whole idea of holding, and I do believe what we're talking about is the energy we bring is reflected back to us. Imagine that on a mass consciousness scale, holding a vision of the earth we want in this time of really feeling kind of dark right now,
Mm.
and divisive. It's very divisive, but everybody wants peace for the world. Everybody wants harmony for the world. We may not agree on politics, but we know that is no more war, right? So we can still hold a vision for the world that creates a mass consciousness, and helps people treat each other better.
Susan, what is it that you do now? Like maybe COVID has changed the way you do things, but what would be a regular week for you now?
Yes, I still connect with people like you. I love doing these podcasts and sharing positive
Yeah,
messages. The people I've been
absolutely.
talking to are also positive. I love that. I'm working to, just like I said, I'm on the last chapter of my book, and then I'm going to be going back in and uh, passing, giving another pass to it, and then handing it over to an editor. So that's taking up a lot of my time. I still have clients, so I love we just talk on the phone, and there's something about, I'm happy to do Zoom with clients, but I think there's something about that disembodied voice that gives people a little more courage, if they can't look me in the eyes, to reveal a truth that needs to come out there for us to work on.
Mm.
So there's that aspect to the clients. I love being in nature. I take myself, we live down the street from some woods. We have a beautiful farm nearby where I feel like I'm in a Jane Austen novel, and I should be wearing a high-waisted dress with my little spaniel walking the woods. So being in nature, we have a dog. Having a pet is so awesome because they really help us during stressful times, and our dog is awesome that way. Um, so that's my week, and I certainly connect with family and friends on the phone. And I try not to be in places where I have to wear a mask too much because it reminds me of, oh, we're still in this, right? I don't want to be. I have to wear them where I have to wear them, and even then, I smile under my mask. I want at
That's
least
a good
people to see
point.
that I'm,
Yeah.
you know, I just want people to see, okay, my eyes are smiling at you, even though I'm kind of anonymous right now.
This will be
um,
your second book, will it not? You had Thank You Cancer as well.
You know, I that's gonna be my second book because that was the book I said was, "I can't believe this all just happened to me."
Hmm.
And I didn't have the writing skills. I had the download. It was all in chronologically, no character development,
Yeah.
nothing, and I combined all the things that I learned that I'm putting into this book. I
Hmm.
had 2 books in one. So actually, Brian, thanks for mentioning that. It shows me too. I should probably there's somewhere on my platform that's showing up, and I've got to take it down. Um, but that, thank you. That is the book in my on my radar screen is going back and doing the work on that and making it a straight memoir without, hey, try acupuncture, try Reiki, because I was saying this happened to me and you should do this, and it was just a big jumble of a book with great information, but it would take the reader's eyes would be spinning
But it's a
if I had
great,
put
both
that
of them
book
are
out.
great ideas with titles and you're going to bring them together. But the idea of just pulling, you know, getting the good things out of the bad things.
Yeah, and
And
they're there.
they're
Yeah,
always there and that we shouldn't overlook them and we should look hard for them as looking for diamonds
take some
looking
time.
for
That's a
gold.
good
Yeah.
point, Brian. That's a good point because it's not like we miraculously say, well, I'm cancer free. Let's see now. There's some what is it? Decompression.
Decompression. Yeah.
Yes. So we're decompressing. These things kind of float in. It's not like you just pull out your clipboard and you're just making this list of all your gems from adversity. It's really this
Yeah. When you're
very,
fired or let go or downsized, you're not skipping out of the office.
not at all. And you know what? I'm going to bring up another good point. I saw a therapist, and and it's the same thing with life coaching. It's a great way to help download this stuff also.
What is like you're doing a lot of things, and I think you're doing a lot of great things for both men and women. What is like a difficult aspect of what you're doing, more in the speaking and in your writing and in your coaching? What is something
That's a
difficult?
great question. I think it's still the idea of refining my message,
Hmm.
and I'll say I'm not a big marketer.
Hmm.
I love attracting clients, but I'm getting marketed to so much by different things. You should do it this way. Do you want a PR person? Do you want this? And it's almost overwhelming to me that I go back to that spark of, I'm just going to post these videos now. I'm just going to send this out to my email list. And I feel like it's almost organically growing this way.
Hmm.
And when I get that zing feeling or the lightheadedness thing that I get, I'll probably say, okay, I got to do that. But yeah, that would probably be my greatest question mark, I'll say, of procedures.
There is that yin and yang with you have these marketers coming for you, but you also have other people saying, no, just content, just keep putting it out there and more natural flow to it.
Well, it
Are you
feels good.
seeing, hearing or listening to people telling you to refine your message, or is it you understanding who you are and in your growth saying,
Yeah.
I just need to
It's
fine tune this a
internal
bit?
refinement. And I think that's the call of the spirit in all of us, whether whatever work we're doing or whoever we're being in the world, it's that refinement of really and getting that really close communication to your divine and really saying, am I being authentic and in my integrity? With what I'm saying, what I'm doing, and how I'm serving in the world. And that can be a simple way. Even if I had stayed at Kentucky Fried Chicken if I was bringing it every
Yeah.
day, knowing I was making people have a wonderful experience every day, that they knew they were going to see my face at the counter, and that I was making a difference and that felt good in my heart, then that's great.
With what you're doing with people with setbacks and the disappointments people are facing, what is, one of the most satisfactory examples, or what is it you're finding most joyful in what you're
Oh,
doing?
that is an easy question to answer. Watching or hearing, I'll say this too, the light come on in my client's face or when I speak and people come up and they're so excited because they finally kind of got a like a line on a dream they'd had that they may have put away for a while, but they're starting to feel excited about their lives again. And then seeing the lessons, like the whole thing about that light going on and the possibilities that are sparkling in their eyes at that
Hmm.
moment are
Ahas, yeah.
the greatest gifts to me. I mean, this is another good reason that I'm not on Zoom with my clients sometimes. I have tears coming down my face because I'm just so moved. And my clients, and I know other coaches will agree with me on this too, and is they say such gold. They're realizing so much that I'm writing away with a pen like that is brilliant. That is brilliant what you just said. And we record our calls because I want my client to go back and listen to themselves
Hmm.
and hear what they're saying because they're going to have that much more fortification to move forward.
Susan, if someone wants to get into coaching, transformational coaching, and wherever they are, they might be at KFC, they might be in Germany,
It's for anyone who feels the call.
how would you direct them, or some advice you would give them to find their path into transformational coaching?
That's a great question. For me, it was so easy. Like I said, Brian, it just popped up and I was
Yeah,
like, yeah, you're my gal.
yeah.
Wait, you're saying everything I already believe. So that is, do some research there. I know if you Google this. Now, for
Hmm.
me, my company, they just changed their name from Life Mastery Institute to Brave Thinking Institute, which is a
Hmm.
great name because that's what it takes,
Yeah,
brave
brave
thinking
thinking.
to move your life along. Um, so Brave Thinking Institute would be the group that it was founded by Mary Morrissey, and she is in this business the longest, over 40 years. You're not going to find people that have been doing transformational work this long. And so I really think they're wonderful. You're going to find other programs. So what I would highly recommend is that you align with the message from the beginning. That you're already like, I am on board with this message. And then look at how you're training. Look at how you're taking your client through this information. Does that all resonate with you? Because you're going to have to do the work first. You're going to be going through the training first
Hmm.
and working on yourself before you ever get out there with your clients.
As a transformational coach, speaker, or author, what what would you like people to understand about what you do that they may not understand? They may see you up on a stage or
Hmm.
in a conference room or in an online. What would you like them to understand? Whether it could be something difficult or just so they have maybe a better appreciation of what you're trying
I
to
love that
deliver.
question. Yeah. I think you might be under the impression, if you don't, or if you're not familiar with life coaching, that this
Hmm.
coach is going to tell you what to do. That I'm just going to tell you, oh, you want to do this? Well, here, follow these steps, and it's really about pulling out what's inside of you.
Mm.
I'm going to give you the tools that help you formulate a dream. Get rid of. Remember, I said not everything can come with you. Uh, get work on self-esteem. How are you going to deal with failure? Because boy, if you take this journey, you're going to be up against a number of things where you're questioning your abilities and know-how. So we're packing a toolbox for you, and in the meantime, important questions are being asked of you so that we can draw those things out of you. It's evocative coaching, where you're all of a sudden going to hear yourself saying, as the client, the things you needed. And I'm going to be reflecting back through some of the negative things you're saying, coming up with questions that make you go, do I really believe that's true? Or is that just an old pattern for me that I've got to clean out?
Yeah, I mean, as I just grew up in sports, knowing that the coach doesn't play the game for you. The
Right.
coach gives you some of the plans, the lessons, but it's you who, and that's what you're doing. You're giving life coaching lessons.
That's it. They're going to get out on the field, Brian. That's a great analogy. Yeah, I can't get out of there on the field with them, but I make them. And what else does a coach do? They make you accountable.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when we get going and you're taking some brave moves, right? You're using your brave thinking, and then you're moving into action steps, but they don't have to be giant. There's a great phrase that even baby steps will get you up Mount Everest if you keep taking them. And that's the other thing. In transformation, yes, certain things can happen quite quickly for us. The light bulb can all of a sudden just come on, and we're going to take those steps. But we can beat ourselves up. We look at other people we wish to emulate, and we see them as overnight successes. We don't see all the work that it took to get there. And so we want to give ourselves permission to take every step of the journey. Time is going to pass whether we do something with it or not. So we might as well be taking the steps to make our hearts sing. And make our hearts sing in the meantime, just knowing that we're doing this thing.
Susan,
And it's going to take whatever time.
you're leading into my next question, which all
Mm.
of this interview has been good advice. But for my listeners who may be just getting into work, discouraged
Mm.
with their work, maybe as you were in finance, you were doing
Yeah.
it. It was
Yeah.
part of a necessity almost.
Yep.
How would you offer some encouragement for them to keep going and maybe diverge or
Yes.
find again that motivation to why they're doing what they do, to why we work?
I would tell your listeners that they owe it to you. I'm just going to say you. You owe it to yourself to at least find out what you would love. And those signals are already in there. You may have suppressed them, but those are easy to draw out again. There's so
Yeah.
many ways to get clear, and you may already know this. And think, well, these are all the reasons why I can't, right? Family responsibilities, benefits, that's always a big one. And what I say is, I didn't do it overnight either. You can keep your job and still work at something you love doing.
Hmm.
You can be the singer, you can be the artist, you can be the life coach, you can uh, there's something in you that needs to be expressed, and when you don't, that disappointment has to go somewhere in your body, whether through some negative thinking, poorly thinking about yourself, that you don't have what it takes and you drew the short straw, like that's what I thought. But it's not telling you to quit your job. Or maybe you feel you can, that's fine too. You're going to know that part. But all I know is it's not all or nothing. There is a building process that can go on in the background. While I was walking into that office, I was calling up the library to see if I could speak in public. I was writing articles. I was building a website. I got my first few clients. So it's just that idea of, it's the stuff you're doing and while nobody's looking even,
Yeah.
that's going to keep building your life, and get support. You don't have to do this alone. You
I
you
love
can get support.
I love this is what you're saying because I find a lot of people will say drop everything you're doing and go do what you love. But you're saying you can do something and do what you love. And then
Yes.
if they come
And
together
you
and then
wait
you're
till you
fully
see.
doing it,
Yes.
it's a
Yes,
great
you'll see
balance.
that it becomes your launch pad,
Hmm.
right? You're building your launch pad, let's say, in my method.
Hmm.
And you'll
Yeah.
hear other amazing stories. There is something about taking a huge risk that that makes a quantum leap.
Hmm.
But it's what you're able to withstand, I'll
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
in your personal life. There's some people that can rip off the Band-Aid, right, and they just let it go. But others who need that feeling and they feel responsible for a family, I think that's a great way to go.
Susan, I know you said you're on radio. Do you still have the podcast to thrive?
No, I quit that. I'm doing just this, Brian. I'm just doing um, guest appearances because it's so much fun. I'm
Mhm.
not writing all the episodes like I was in 2018 and 2019. That was a rich experience, and most
Mhm.
of those episodes in my blogs have gone in some form into this book that I'm putting out now. So it was such a rich experience, and my plan is to go back to podcasting once I'm done well into getting this book on its way and out the door. I'll have
Well,
the time then.
I'm sure
Yeah.
this book, Pulling the Gems of Adversity, will be good. Are there other ways people can get in contact with you to reach you?
Yes. Yes, easy enough. So I invite your listeners to find me in two places also, just to get a sense of, yeah, if you haven't already, you can see my blogs and hear some other radio episodes. Is susandlorenzo.com, SUSANDELORENZO.com. There's a lot about me there. You can also sign up for my email list. I promise I won't spam you. I'm very much a once a month, or if not that, if even that.
Hmm.
I'm on a really good professional Facebook page too, where I put in little 5-minute videos about overcoming adversity, and it's facebook.com/Dream Coach Susan, and it's a capital D, C, and S in that, rest
Dream
lowercase.
Coach Susan, yes.
And so they'll always see a little snippet of inspiration around coming out of adversity and building into a new life on that one as well. And then my email, susan@susandlorenzo.com.
Susan, you mentioned you live out near a farm and you like to take a stroll, but what is it you do
Mm.
for rest besides that? You're
Medit-
busy
um,
and
I'm a I love to play the piano,
well,
and I love, yeah, I did say walking, didn't I? Meditation and reading, and anything that causes laughter is good too.
how would you say, in your experience from getting your first KFGC job to traveling the world from coast to coast as well, how has work been a constant in your life to encourage listeners of the importance of work, and how has work helped, whether you shaped the work that you were in or how it has shaped you? How has work been there for you through your career so
Great,
far?
great question, Brian. For me, I'll say it's about building relationship with others.
Mm.
Creativity has been huge for me in any job I've had. And when it was less than what I could do, it always felt very constrictive. But yes, relationship with myself and being in integrity, that's always huge for me. And then finally, just the joy of putting in a good day and knowing you help someone is in some way is a great feeling, even whether on a team or delivering what you said you were going to deliver.
Susan, I appreciate your time, but I have one final question, and that is, why do you work?
It's an answer to an internal call inside of me. And initially I was, like I said in the earlier part of our talk, Brian, I was thinking, why do we have to work?
Yeah,
Why do we have to do this like drone
I'm
thing?
amazed by people who are like, no, at 15, I knew I was going to do this and I was going to do this. I'm like,
Oh,
what?
I'm like,
Not
this is
me.
a terrible setup. We should just be playing and learning stuff. Because as a kid, I was like outside and exploring animals, rocks, snakes, and everything. And so this idea of going into a building and sitting in a classroom, and now I'm going to go and sit in a cubicle, I never got that. I never got that. But when I felt the contribution and the connection, then it's natural. It's a natural feeling as much as the play is, because it's a form of play. And I can always find something good in every job I did. It's always a part of that growth.
Susan, I like what you have on your website. It's as you work together to help sustain belief while taking inspired, accountable action. And that seems from this interview what you're doing to help people who have faced setbacks. It may be not even so obvious setbacks in people's lives, but willing to pull those gems out from people. And Susan Lorenzo, I truly appreciate your time here today. and it was very nice meeting you.
Thank you, Brian. It was a lot of fun. I so enjoyed our conversation, and I just want to wish all the best to you and your listeners.